Welcome, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, sir.
You've got a new book out, and you're making an impression nationally. You really are setting the stage. People are watching you on YouTube, reading your book, and saying, hey, that's what I believe. Yeah, and they were afraid to say it. They were afraid to say it because they thought they'd be called racist maybe, or maybe they'd be called too far right-wing. But you're saying and speaking the truth in love regardless.
That's right. That's how this whole thing kind of broke open for me. We went out and, every John Q. citizen went down to City Hall and spoke up at a meeting. And the next thing you know, we're running for Lieutenant Governor. And this has just been an incredible ride. I tell people all the time, my story wouldn't be possible anywhere but America and only with God. So.
Only with God. Well, tell us your story. Start at the beginning a little bit. It's covered in your book, so we'll just get highlights. But tell us a little about where you were born and what your life was like as a kid, and then how you got where you are.
Well, grew up in a somewhat non-traditional family. I say that it's a non-traditional family, but it's certainly not unlike the experiences of many, many people. My mom was married twice, had 5 children with her first husband and 5 children with my dad. I grew up as number 9 of the total 10, but grew up in a household of really 5 children. We had some tough times, very poor. My father was much older than my mother, and he was retired, and we lived off his retirement and off of welfare. But when my father passed away, my mother decided she wasn't going to live off welfare, and she could have. She was advised by friends that she could, how much money she could make living off welfare, but that wasn't the standard she wanted to set for herself or her children. She went to work as a custodian at a university, and when she took over and took the reins of our family, I'm telling you, we went to heights we had never seen. It really set a standard in my life. It says, you don't need to wait on the government to take care of you. You need to get out and make a living for yourself. The same way my mom did, and that's what I've been doing ever since. And like I said, greatest hero of my life is my mom, and she really set the standard for us.
Well, that's great. You know what? Dr. Ben Carson was sitting where you're sitting here not long ago, and he told his story, Gifted Hands, and his mom, and he grew up in poverty too, but his mom said, you got to learn to read, and she is his hero as well. So it's, over and over, the importance of mothers and family. Government can't raise kids. We need family.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, how did you talk passionately in churches about Jesus? How did you come to Jesus?
Well, I grew up in church my entire life. I tell people all the time that amongst my brothers and sisters and I, we would sit around and we would talk, and I look back and think about the deep conversations we had even as children. But all of those deep conversations that we had, they all centered around just a few themes, and those themes were what was right and what was wrong, what was fair and what was unfair, and then ultimately what God said about it. And that's just how we were raised, and raised in the church. Even with my dad wouldn't allow my mom to go to church, but he would let us go. So I went to church from the earliest days, but the one thing that I found that I was missing in church, I found later as a young man, my best friend, who actually lives here in Denton. He's actually a resident in Denton right now. He invited me to go to a church one day at a student union at the university where my mom worked and where we were attending at that time. And I heard a message there that night, and that was the night that I got saved.
You gave your life to Jesus?
Absolutely.
So from there to the city council meeting, what was your life like?
Basically, I was a married father. When I got married pretty young by a lot of people's standards. I think I was married when I was 20 or 21 years old. My wife and I started having children. I was just an average, ordinary working citizen, going to work, just trying to figure out a way through life. I worked a lot in furniture manufacturing, a total of about 20 years. Worked in the restaurant business,
which is a great business from North Carolina.
Absolutely. Many folks who came before me had retired from that industry and made a good living in it. And I thought maybe that's the direction I would go into, but things turned out not to be that way. I worked in the restaurant industry for a while, and also owned a small business. My wife and I owned the daycare center. It was quite successful. But I came to find out that what I really wanted to do, my passion was with teaching. And so I was working in the furniture manufacturing field and going to school full time. My goal was to become a history professor at the college level, which I still hope to do at some point. But once I gave that speech at the city council, it just completely changed the trajectory of my life.